Then, the final week. Haley almost disappeared. She didn't join her study group, skipped yoga. Her texts were short. When her roommate asked, she only said, "Busy." But no one saw her study. No one saw her smile. On Wednesday night, Orlando called her. They spoke for over 30 minutes. Haley told no one, but security footage later showed her leaving the house around 1 a.m., wearing a thick coat, no makeup, no purse, just her phone in hand, and she walked into a house she would never leave again. That was the final month, the last month of Haley Anderson's life. Not a string of dramatic events, but a series of small moments, layered, building quietly like an underground current. Signs that only made sense to her friends when they sat down to piece them together after her funeral. A story without screams. No masked killer. Just a girl who thought she was strong enough to save someone, without realizing she was slowly losing herself. When police arrived at the scene early that morning, they didn't rush to make accusations. Instead, they entered with an almost reverent caution, as if each step risked disturbing something sacred. Haley Anderson was dead. That was certain. But who had killed her? No one dared to say aloud. News spread quickly, as all shocking things do in a small college town. Friends didn't believe it. Professors went quiet. The student body entered a dazed, dreamlike state. But those closest to Haley, the ones who had touched the intimate moments of her life, began to look at one another differently. The first question wasn't, who killed her? It was, who knows more than they're saying? Orlando Tercero. That name surfaced in everyone's mind immediately, like a reflex. He wasn't just the ex-boyfriend. He had once been a close friend. The guy who used to walk with Haley at parties, borrow her textbooks in nursing class, and even invited her current boyfriend into his fraternity. Their relationship was tangled. Friends didn't know what to call him, ex, friend, or obsession. But what made things suspicious wasn't the past. It was his absence. When Haley went missing, so did Orlando. No one could reach him. His apartment was empty, phone dead, car gone. And the security camera outside the house, the one thing that doesn't lie, captured the moment Haley walked in and never came back out. Only Orlando emerged, with a trash bag, with sleeping pills in hand, with a bandage wrapped around his forehead hours later, and then with a suitcase. He didn't flee in panic. There were no signs of haste. He left as if everything had been planned in advance. Haley's family heard from police. The likely suspect had flown to Nicaragua, a country where he held dual citizenship, a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. And to those seeking justice, that fact hit like a suspended sentence. But the suspicion didn't stop there. It spread like ink in water. Those who were close to Haley, who had once laughed with her, suddenly found themselves under scrutiny. Kevin, Haley's ex-boyfriend, had been the last person with her the night before she died. Were they back together? Did they argue? Was there anything off in his version of events? Haley's roommates, Josie and Michelle, had they seen anything? Heard anything? Missed a detail? Was there something they withheld from the police out of grief? In the first few days, no one was above question. Police didn't press charges. But the eyes of the community were different. Anyone close to Haley became a possibility. People began to recall the little things. A strange look from Orlando at a party. A haunting, offhand comment. If I lose Haley, what's left to hold on to? A time she said she saw him driving slowly past her house for no reason. One of Haley's friends broke down in tears. We all knew something was wrong with him, but we didn't think he'd go that far. Perhaps the most chilling words came from Haley's mother, Karen, when asked about Orlando's reaction to her daughter's death. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't offer condolences. The first thing he asked was, what did the police find in the house? Every word, every action, every silence was dissected, and under the fluorescent lights of the interrogation room emerged not the portrait of a violent madman, but of a man who had waited, who had planned, who had decided that if he couldn't have Haley, no one would. As investigators began piecing together the fragments from surveillance footage, prescriptions, receipts, handwritten letters, and movement data, they saw a picture clearer than any testimony. Haley wasn't killed in a moment of rage. She had been lured with a promise. One final conversation. One last chance to end things peacefully. But the one who made that promise didn't keep it. In that circle of suspicion, those who were once witnesses slowly became evidence. And the one who had once been a friend became the center of every nightmare theory. There are killers whose names send a chill down your spine because they are so evil, so alien, so monstrous. But there are also those who terrify us for the opposite reason, because they seem like us. Because they once smiled, once loved, once studied, once seemed like the friendly neighbor in the room next door. And then one day they strangle someone they once loved, with the same hands that just a day before had held that person in an embrace. Orlando Tercero was that kind of person. Born in Miami, raised in Nicaragua in a well-off family, a father who was a doctor, a mother who was a teacher, Orlando did not grow up in violence. He bore no early scars. On the contrary, he was raised well, did well in school, earned good grades, didn't smoke, didn't use drugs. If you didn't know better, if you hadn't seen the photo of him bowing his head in court in Managua, you'd think he was just another student, maybe even the kind of guy your mom would want you to date. Educated, attentive, with a clear path ahead. So what happened? In the files reopened after Haley's death, no one found any reports of abuse, no restraining orders, no footage of physical outbursts. But everyone who had witnessed their relationship said the same thing. Orlando couldn't let go. He loved Haley, but not in the way she needed. He loved like someone who tracked every detail, who messaged her, where she went that day, why she was online but not replying. He loved like a shadow that never left. She'd go to class and he'd show up at the library. She'd come home and he'd be sitting on the porch. She'd smile at someone else and he'd go silent. It wasn't control through yelling. It was manipulation through silence, through a look that made her feel guilty just for wanting freedom. Haley once told a friend, "He's not doing anything wrong, but I always feel drained around him." It was the kind of relationship you can't quite name, but your body knows something's off. Orlando wasn't a man of violent bursts. He was someone who nurtured hurt like a pet, feeding it, tending to it, letting it grow into a quiet rage. A rage that didn't explode, just waited for a justification. When Haley told him they needed to end things for good, he didn't shout, didn't throw things. He just nodded and started planning. What made this crime so chilling was his calmness. The way he left everything intact, the half-burned candle, the neatly arranged pillow, the clean room, the unlocked door, as if even death had to be staged to fit the image he wanted to keep of her. No chaos, no blood, just breath, gone. In testimonies, friends said he had threatened suicide if Haley ever left. Once he called her in the middle of the night and said that if she didn't come over, he would do something terrible. She went. Not out of love, but out of sympathy. And because she still held on to that last shred of hope, that someone who had once been her friend, her boyfriend, couldn't really harm her. But Orlando didn't see Haley as a person. He saw her as an extension of himself. And when she pulled away, when her eyes no longer belonged to him, he felt himself disappearing. He couldn't stand that. Later, psychologists would describe Orlando's behavior as indicative of obsessive-compulsive possessiveness, but refined. He didn't lose control. On the contrary, every move showed deliberation, inviting her over late at night, choosing a moment when no one would be around, going to the pharmacy to buy sleeping pills, as if to prepare for the final act. This wasn't the crime of someone who lost their mind. It was the crime of someone who couldn't accept being left. And perhaps the most frightening part of this story is that many have seen a little bit of Orlando in themselves, or in an ex, or in a friend who just wanted to clear the air. We've all thought, Jealousy is normal. Checking in means you care. Losing sleep over someone means you love them. But sometimes, that's the beginning of something far darker. A love that demands no consent, that knows no limits, that refuses to be denied, is not love. It's possession. Haley didn't see it for what it was. Or maybe she did, but not strongly enough. Like so many young women, she believed she could save someone by simply listening. She showed up that night and never came back. Police called it evidence. Prosecutors called it a coherent timeline. But for Haley's family, it was just a series of cold fragments, numbers, video clips, receipts, handwritten letters, pieced together into a picture of the moment their daughter was killed in a room she never intended to sleep in. A camera at the front door captured Haley entering Orlando's house late on the night of March 8th. She wore a gray hoodie, held her phone in one hand, her hair loose. There was nothing unusual in her stride. No fear, no hesitation. She believed she could have one last conversation to bring closure to what once was. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Orlando left the house for the first time around 7 a.m. the next morning. He took out a trash bag, clean clothes, and wore a calm that was almost eerie. He then went to a nearby pharmacy and purchased Zizquil and melatonin, sleep aids. No one knows what he intended to use them for, but the cameras show him returning home and staying for several more hours. He wrote a letter. In it, he said, "I'm sorry. I never thought I could do that." Then he packed a suitcase, wrapped the wound on his forehead, believed by police to be the result of a failed hanging attempt, and drove straight to JFK Airport. The flight took him out of the United States, beyond the reach of U.S. law, to a place he thought he would never be tried, Nicaragua. As a dual citizen, Orlando knew the system. The U.S. has no extradition treaty with Nicaragua. If he stayed put, he would be safe. But what he didn't account for was the determination of a mother who had lost her child. Karen Anderson didn't cry on national television. She didn't organize public vigils. Quietly and patiently, she worked with the district attorney's office, compiled documents, contacted the press, and pressured both governments. She didn't ask for revenge, only one thing, justice. Eventually, after months of diplomatic tension, the Nicaraguan government agreed to something unprecedented: to try a murder case that took place in the U.S. with an American victim, under their own laws. Orlando Tercero was charged with femicide, a special charge used to describe the killing of a woman by someone close to her. The trial was live-streamed, from a courtroom in Managua to the district attorney's office in Broome County. It was the first time Karen saw him, through a screen. He didn't bow his head. He didn't cry. Orlando sat there calmly, as if waiting for roll call in an old college class. Haley's closest friends took the stand. Josie spoke of the uninvited visits. Kevin talked about the slashed tires. Police presented the footage. The forensic pathologist read the cause of death: strangulation. Orlando's defense lawyer argued a feeble claim, that he suffered a temporary mental break, that he was drunk, that he remembered nothing. But there was no toxicology report, no hard evidence. No one believed it. The court denied a second psychological evaluation. And then, it was Karen's turn to speak. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She spoke about her daughter, about her dreams, about the times Haley helped the homeless, about the graduation party she had planned 2 months in advance. And then she looked straight into the screen, her voice calm, like a whisper. "I hope you spend the longest time possible behind bars. Because you didn't just kill my daughter. You killed a part of my family. And no one will ever be whole again." Just an hour and a half later, the judge returned to the courtroom. No need to wait until the next day. She sentenced Orlando Tercero to 30 years in prison, the maximum sentence under Nicaraguan law. The sentence was carried out immediately, but for Haley's family it wasn't the end. Her seat at graduation remained in the center of the hall, marked by a small photo, and the honorary diploma her father stepped forward to accept. That father said, "I just want to feel like a part of her is still with me." That mother still keeps her daughter's ashes in the old bedroom, still lights a candle every night, still folds the blanket, just the way Haley used to. And for us, those who never knew her, we're left with a quiet question. Can someone love another person so much they kill them just to keep feeling needed? Or was that love never real to begin with? Haley's story ends with a sentence, but the loss does not. Because the most terrifying things aren't in the acts themselves, but in the ways we overlook the signs we thought were harmless. If you saw yourself in this story, leave a comment, even just a line. I'm still listening. That's how people like Haley are not forgotten. Thank you for staying with Cold Radio. We'll see you again in another final month.